So now kind of transitioning, what we really want to talk about tonight is for most of our time is chaplaincy in that ministry that you've had. Just for people that may not know, what does a chaplain do? What are your tasks? What are your duties? What does a week look like for you?
Well, on paper, I work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, but ministry does not happen 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Exactly.
So those are office hours, and that's another thing. I have an office. Thank God they don't expect me to stay in it. If I stay in my office, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because part of it is being among the people and being there with the people and for the people. But so I'm on call whenever they have a genuine need that needs me to come. But being a chaplain is there's a catchphrase in chaplaincy that goes like this: chaplaincy is the ministry of presence. It's the ministry of presence. Now, being present with people is good ministry. Being there with people, being there for people is good ministry. I don't want to oversimplify anything of what I'm doing, but that's the most important thing that I do as a chaplain, is being there for people. Now, being the chaplain at a fire department is that I'm at my office. Our department has 4 stations among our 15 square mile radius. We're a small as far as square miles goes, but in that square miles around Pelham Road area is jam packed. So there's a lot of people there, businesses and homes. So I go visit the 4 stations. I just drop in. That's one of the similarities, I guess, with being a pastor, is I still do visitation. And I went to the hospital today. One of our commissioners is in the hospital. So I went to the hospital and made a hospital visit today. So just like I did as Pastor Gary for 30-something years. But go by and just walk in, and not there to corner anybody, not there to pressure anybody into talking to me about chaplain stuff, but just to go by there and check on them and let them know I'm here. Hey, how's everybody doing? And make small talk with them, find out what they're doing, maybe see what they're training on, and just being there. Normally, I don't get into a lot of Chaplain Gary stuff with them there, but a lot of times how it happens is when I'm leaving the station, when I'm saying, well, I'm going to go check on some others and I'm leaving, I'll walk out the door sometimes and they'll say, Chaplain, can you wait just a minute? Can I talk to you about something? And it'll be that way. And maybe they just got something on their heart. Maybe it was a bad call. Our people in emergency services, they see some tough stuff. And it's hard to process the things that they see, the things that they hear, the smells, everything. It sticks with you sometimes. They're like photographs that attach to our minds, that when they lay down at night, when they get by themselves, they're seeing it, they're hearing it, they're smelling it, they're whatever the experience may be. And that's normal for any so-called normal human being. The problem is when you get stuck there. We all struggle with things. And that's one good thing about where we are in the fire service, law enforcement, emergency services, is that we have come now to a place to where it's okay to admit that some of the things that we face, they do bother us. Doesn't mean that you're losing your mind. It means that you care about people. And isn't that the reason you ought to be in emergency services to begin with, is because you're caring about people. They don't make much money. They're not getting rich doing what they're doing in any part of emergency services, that you care about people. So we're doing what we're doing at a good time that people can't admit. And so sometimes I'm going to hear from, I go to calls. I don't go to every call. I go to some of the more difficult calls. I go to structure fires. I just automatically go to, we all do in the fire department. Some of the wrecks that happen, if I hear that it's a pretty bad wreck, I'll go ahead and get en route to that. If I hear words like ejection, somebody's been thrown from a vehicle, or entrapment, somebody's trapped in. If I hear car versus motorcycle or car versus pedestrian, I know that's probably going to be a bad situation. Cardiac arrests, I go to, those kind of things, those very difficult, very tough calls. And I'm there not just for our personnel at the fire department, but I'm there for the people in our community too. And because I don't know how many times I've stood there with a wife as she moved from being a wife to a widow because of cardiac arrest that happened in their living room. And they just need somebody there, the ministry of presence, being there for people, not having the answers, because we don't have the answers. You know, we have the question, why did this happen? Why did it happen now? Why did it happen this way? And those are real questions, but our jobs are not to provide what those answers are. We can miss out on good opportunities for ministry by thinking we got to open our mouth and say something every time, by thinking we've got to have all the answers. In over 20 years, probably moving towards 25 years total in chaplaincy, I have never had anybody at any fire department say, Chaplain, we are so glad. Thank you for having all the answers. Nobody's ever said that. Why? Because I don't have all the answers. Chaplain, thank you for explaining to us why this happened. Nobody's ever said that because I can't explain all those things. You know what I hear over and over and over again? Chaplain, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here.
Right.
It's the ministry of presence, being there with people. I've gone through difficult times in my life, deaths of family members and things like that. And Wilson, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember anything anybody ever said to me during those difficult times, but I remember people who were there.
Right.
Okay. I thought about, I always think about Job in the book of Job. He had some friends, and those friends started out doing a good thing. When Job's trouble started and he'd lost everything and he was, just in such bad shape. In Job chapter 2, it talks about Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. And I love what verse 11 here says, for they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and comfort him. They made an appointment to come together and mourn with him and to comfort him. And down in verse 13, it says, so they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights. And it says in verse 13, and no one spoke a word to him. No one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. That was good ministry. If that's all they had done, Job would have been helped. They were there for him. They didn't try. It's when a little bit later in there, they started trying to say, well, Job, this and that and the other thing, and try to explain it and say, you must have a bunch of sin in your life or you wouldn't be going. All those kind of, that's when they blew it.
Right.
And so if they had just been there, and there is powerful ministry. Through all the years I've been in the church as a pastor, I've had people say, I haven't reached out to this family whose loved one just died because I don't know what to say. And I'm like, if I had hair, I'd pull it out. It's like, you don't have to say anything. It's not going and saying something. It's just going and putting a hand on their shoulder. It's going to say, I love you and I'm praying for you. That's powerful.
Right.
To know that somebody's just there for you. And that's a lot of what I do in chaplain ministry is I go there for the people that work for our fire department, other fire departments. Sometimes I'll go and it's not just us. It's not just Bowling Springs, but all around and all around the county really, and wherever that need may be. So but that's a lot of what I do as a chaplain. And
right. And I imagine, I imagine that if you were to try to have the answers all the time, you might not get the opportunity to have these conversations that you'd have with those chaplains.
Yeah.
I don't think people want someone that feels like they know it all. And sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know it all.
I do say that.
Right. When you do get that opportunity, let's say someone in the fire department says, hey, can we talk? And they've gone through a lot of that grief. They have questions. How do you deal with it? Because I imagine the questions are, what? First question is probably why. How do you deal with that type of question? And what do you say to them?
What I always do is I just kind of go back with them. I'll kind of talk with them through like whatever it is that they're struggling with. And there is power in letting them talk it out. It's not me talking to them. What I do doesn't, it's not the healing, be all, end all healing. What I do is I help them process it. Our mind has to process things that we go through. So I'll go back and I'll say, well, how did this start? Tell me about when this started, that this struggle began, and let them describe it to me. And however long they need to talk about that, to describe what is, what was your reaction when this started? How has your reaction to this changed in the time that since this all first started? And just it's some ways that I get them talking. And by getting them talking, it's kind of like the pressure that leaves them. The word picture I use sometimes is if you get a soft drink and you twist that top, that pressure that comes out when you twist that top, that's what letting them talk about it does for them. It's getting that pressure off. Now, I make sure they know, and our people that work at our fire department know, but I make sure everybody understands I'm not a counselor, not like a certified counselor. I counsel people, but I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychotherapist or a clinician or anything, but I know who those people are that I can recommend people to. Sometimes they just need to open up. In emergency services for years, you would hear from some hard-hearted old chief officer, well, you just need to suck it up and get over it. And I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what suck it up and get over it means,
Right.
And how do you do that? And now it's not just suck it up and stop talking about it and get over it. It's the power of releasing it. And if somebody that I'm talking to is more of a spiritually minded person, then I will tell them what's happening is that this memory, this terrible photograph, whatever it is that's sticking in your mind, is calling your name and it's trying to take authority over you.
Mhm.
If this person is a believer, I can tell them and talk about it, describe it, because in talking about it and describing it, you're reversing this thing. You're calling it out.
Right.
You're taking the authority that comes through the indwelling Holy Spirit. You're taking the authority over that is calling your name, keeping you up at night, changing your whole personality. You call it out and you take the authority in the name of Jesus instead of letting it take the authority of your life. Now, it's more difficult if that person is not a believer and not spiritually minded. I just have to try to let them talk it out and get the pressure off. And if that's not enough, I keep up with them. You don't just talk to them once and drop them. Keep up with them because they may need to go to the next level. In our state, we have a peer support team called SC FAST. FAST stands for First Responders Assistance and Support Team. And so it's like a next level. They've had more mental and emotional health training. And we have a great representation of those people in the fire service, in EMS, even somewhat in law enforcement with SC FAST across the state of South Carolina. And so they're peers. That means that they understand the difficulties that emergency services people go through, which is different than anybody else. So they're more likely to open up if they're opening up to a peer rather than somebody that has no clue about it. And then the next level of that is I know who the clinicians are, the certified counselors who can help them go to that next level. So I just have to know my place and don't try to, again, it gets back to don't try to be something I'm
Absolutely.
not.
Yeah.
What I do fills an important gap. And then I've got to be mature enough to know when to hand it off to the next person.
Absolutely. And so kind of now talking